Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Today, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite film books that I have. I like reading about the history of film and filmmaking itself, so I just thought I would talk about some books. I might do some more videos too, but I'm just going to kind of go through these and make some recommendations or just talk about them. So, the first book is Cameraman by Dana Stevens. This is a book about Buster Keaton, the silent film innovator, star. Made about 12 really fantastic feature films in the 1920s, going into the 1930s, and Dana Stevens takes an interesting approach where she places Buster Keaton's life in historical context a lot. For instance, she starts about his childhood when he worked in vaudeville and leads to a discussion about child labor laws. There's a lot in here about the early technology of movies, how Buster Keaton was an innovator there. So it's just a really well-written, engaging book all the way through, and I guarantee you'll become a Buster Keaton fan after reading this one. This next book is considered a classic. This is The American Cinema by Andrew Sarris. And this is one of those books. When was this published? I think it was published in the 60s, late 60s. Andrew Sarris was a well-known critic, famous for popularizing the auteur theory, which is a school of criticism that focuses on directors. And this book has chapters on various directors. If you like ranking things, Sarris has this kind of tier system where he ranks directors. I know the auteur theory there's a lot of great pros and cons, whether you believe the director is akin to the author of a book, although there's some, you can go back and forth on that argument, but yeah, the auteur theory remains influential, and this book primarily covers movies from 1929 to 1968. And I should actually consult this book more just to track some of these movies down that Sarris talks about, and he does champion certain directors that maybe were not really part of the discussion before. He also goes after some well-known directors, and so it's a very argumentative book. It's a very engaging book. It's actually been a long time since I've read this book on the auteur theory, but anyway, it's definitely a classic of film criticism. And these next group of books are all more contemporary, deal with contemporary film, more recent film. So this is Radioactive Dreams, the Cinema of Albert Pyun by Justin Decloux. Albert Pyun was a director from the 80s into the 2000s, primarily known for his what we used to call direct-to-video movies. Most of the movies he directed were low budget. He tended to work in genres like science fiction, action movies, horror movies, martial arts movies, things like that. Like his most famous movie might be Cyborg, which was a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. But this is Decloux goes through all the movies, and I was just talking about the auteur theory, and this book is kind of like putting auteur theory into practice. We're taking this director who worked in a lot of low budget movies, but a lot of them became more cult movies, things like that, and it's a really engaging book as far as tracing Pyun's career and how many movies he was able to make. He would often film 2 or 3 different movies simultaneously, so he was very very productive, very innovative in the movies that he made. So, not a director you'll often hear referenced a lot, but it's a really engaging book. So, I have to recommend this one. And I might as well recommend another one with this is Moturn on Moturn: Conversations with Matt Farley and Charles Roxburgh. Now, and this is also Justin Klugh was a co-author on this book with Will Sloan. Now, a little bit on Moturn Cinema. This is focused on Matt Farley, who is a regional filmmaker. He might be more known for his music. He's famously written over 25,000 songs that are available on Spotify, places like that. But he also writes and directs movies as well, and he's been making movies since the 1990s, literally since he got out of college. But this is a book that they do deep dive interviews on each film Matt Farley has made. And I mean, his career, I mean, his films are starting to get some traction. Probably the most famous one is Don't Let the River Beast Get You, which was made in 2012. And if you've not seen it, you definitely should see Don't Let the River Beast Get You immediately. A lot of his movies might be on Tubi, or they're on streaming, but you know, in this 21st century, Matt Farley makes regional, very low budget movies. I mean, he basically casts friends, family are part of his cast and his crew. Very homemade operation, but the movies are really good. They're really interesting if you kind of get on their wavelength. So this is a really interesting book on regional filmmaking in the modern era. These next two books are also by the same author. There's Wild and Crazy Guys: How the Comedy Mavericks of the 80s Changed Hollywood Forever by Nick DeSimian. And this is about people like Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy and John Belushi, a lot of the Saturday Night Live alumni, SCTV alumni, and their movie careers in the 1980s into the 1990s. So this is, it's just a very engaging book on these comedy stars, of course, who were huge when I was growing up, and they remain influential. Their movies continue to be watched, but it's just a really engaging book at this specific era in comedy, history of movie comedy. And then I also have Nick DeSimian's other book, which is about action heroes, The Last Action Heroes, and this book is about the same time period, looking at Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, and Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Jackie Chan, Chuck Norris. And it's another really fun book about, if you like action movies and this era of the big male action stars. There's a lot of really funny stories in this book about the egos, and a lot of backstage stories of things that were going on. And it's like I said, if you're a fan of movies of that era, these two books complement each other well. Let's see, just a few more here. This is Best Movie Year Ever: How 1999 Blew Up the Big Screen by Brian Raftery. Yeah, Raftery. Okay. I read this one a few years ago. It's specifically focused on the year 1999, which a lot of iconic movies came out that year. Movies like Fight Club or Election, The Sixth Sense, Iron Giant, The Matrix, of course. A lot of movies that really spoke to kind of where things were going in terms of culture. I think all these movies are over 25 years old now, but they continue to be discussed. And once again, we get a lot of really good stories, behind the scenes stories, a lot of funny stories about the making of these movies. capturing a lot of these people when they were younger and starting out. Their careers were just starting out. So it's like I said, if you want to read about 1999, this is a really good book. And I think this book came out recently, last year. This is Black Caesars and Foxy Cleopatras by Odie Henderson, film critic, which is about the history of blaxploitation cinema in the 1970s. And you know, there's been other books written about the era, but this is a really good modern take on a lot of these films like Shaft and Superfly and a lot of the Pam Grier movies, and but that's just scratching the surface of a time when there was movies specifically made for black audiences, but also garnered a lot of interest from white audiences. So there's a lot of good history in here of the 1970s and this dynamic era in movies. So this is a good film history book. And then the last one I'll talk about is another film history book that's focused on a single year. I guess that's always a good hook for a book, to just focus on a year. And this is the feature was now Mad Men Mavericks in the Epic Sci-Fi Summer of 1982. So this is focused specifically on the summer of 1982, which saw 8 science fiction movies come out within a very truncated period. Movies like Blade Runner and The Thing and E.T. and Tron, Poltergeist, Conan the Barbarian. So like I said, if you're a fan of these films of this era, early 1980s, 82 was a big year for genre cinema, really kind of blowing up and going a little bit more mainstream. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and this is like I said, if you're a fan of science fiction movies in particular, I would recommend this book. So anyway, I do have some more books I'll probably talk about in some future videos, some more film books that I have, but I guess these primarily dealt with film history for the most part. So those are some recommendations. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye.